Hi, this is your host, Daniel Gutierrez. I'd like to welcome you to our call today with today's guest, Dr. Symeon Rodger. Dr. Symeon has a fascinating background. His more sedate side reveals a university professor, a married priest of the Eastern Orthodox Church, a best-selling author on personal transformation methods used by ancient cultures. On the more edgy side, he's a martial arts expert, an emergency management expert, trained counter-terrorism by veterans of the U.S. and Israeli Special Forces, and he ran top-secret intelligence operations for the Canadian government. Wow. Today, you will discover the 4 factors that have sabotaged your manifesting abilities so far and how to overcome each instantly. How 18th century physicist Sir Isaac Newton has been making your life miserable since birth, and how finally you can give him the boot. I knew somebody was messing me up. A fun scientific process to give you ironclad faith that the law of attraction exists and has been functioning perfectly in your life all along. A systematic manifesting protocol that will turn you into an expert manifester, even if you've tried and failed before. Why working with your own body is critical to your manifesting success and how to do it right. 2 often ignored keys to leveraging the law of attraction. How to make simple adjustments to give yourself startling results and completely change how you relate to daily life. And Dr. Symeon will be your manifestation medic and perform CPR on your ability to use the law of attraction to dramatically change the results in your life. Folks, you are in for a fantastic hour. Dr. Symeon, thank you for joining us, and welcome to the call.
Thank you, Daniel. It's great to be here.
Boy, I tell you what, you got me on the Newton thing. You got me on and your background. My goodness, I mean, it's interesting. No one's ever really put themselves in. Here's my calm side, and here's the side that'll knock you out in 2 seconds. Dr. Symeon, tell us about you. Tell us about, how'd you get where you're at? What were the major turning points that have gotten you where you are?
Wow, if I knew that, if I ever find out, I'll be the first to tell you. But what I can tell you, Daniel, is for some reason, ever since I was very young, probably even before I was a teenager, really, when I think about it, I've been totally focused on one thing, which is how is human life supposed to work? From an early age, this was my big focus. How is it supposed to work? Because I looked around me and I looked at my family, I looked at my friends, I looked at, people at school and all that. And I said to myself, well, that's how it's not supposed to work. But no matter how bad things got, I always had this conviction that there is a way that human life is meant to work. This really can work for us. And whatever that way is that life is supposed to work, that's what I was really interested in finding out. So that took me down all kinds of paths. That took me down the path of looking, investigating, and living out various ancient spiritual traditions, for instance. It led me into the martial arts, which I've been in since I was 9 years old. It led me to investigate various types of health practices and fitness and nutrition and all kinds of things. So really I was looking for what I now call what are the keys to human resilience. And, we're here obviously today to talk about a particular slice of that that's extremely, extremely important, which is how do you manifest the life you want? Can it be done? And I submit that, yes, it actually can be done. It can be done far more easily than you think. And the reasons that we're not doing it are really pretty simple. And that's what I'd like to outline.
Right. Now, the interesting thing is that, and I love that, is, very simply put, for those that are listening in right now, is it really possible? Does this stuff work? Does the law of attraction work? And you've through your study and through your research have found that there are 4 factors that may be sabotaging that ability to really understand it and manifest.
Yeah, that's right. There are 4 factors, and we'll get to those. What I'd like to really start with, so we're all on the same page at the beginning here, is that I'm not here to offer yet another soup to nuts 8 law of attraction program. I think there are too many of those already, and generally speaking, we really don't need another one, because most people, almost everybody who listens to this call, is going to already know the basics of the law of attraction. And, if you don't know the basics, you can always watch the movie The Secret or read the book, and you'll get the basic outline. Now, you'll miss a lot of really important information. You won't have enough information to make it work, but you will get the basic idea. And that's the important starting point. So we don't need to cover really basic ideas. What we do need to do is understand a few things. And to begin with, what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is talk about two key concepts that are highly underrated when it comes to the law of attraction, to making this work. Two things that are customarily underemphasized. And these are really, really important. So the first one is what I call the importance of feeling consistently great. Now, feeling consistently great, as you can guess, is primarily an emotional category. And yet it's barely a footnote in most law of attraction material. You know, it's hard, very, very seldom do you find a whole lot of emphasis put on this concept. And this is why it's terribly important because, of course, why is it we attract things into our life? Why is it that in our life we manifest, create, or attract, whatever word you want to use, persons, events, and things into our life? Is it our thinking process that does this? Well, not exactly. If it were a thinking process, it'd be very easy to manifest what we want. Clearly, the point of attraction, what's pulling things into us, what's creating our circumstances, is our feeling state. It's the powerful emotion we have. And, you know, this very much ties in with modern science, which is telling us that the energy field of the heart is thousands of times stronger, really, than the energy field of the brain. Okay, so our feeling state is really where it's at. And, of course, ancient traditions, which I've written about a great deal, talk about the fact that the heart is actually the locus of human intelligence. Wow. And now we're beginning to understand that because we understand, and this is a great anthropological truth, a great truth about the way the human being is built, that that intelligence or consciousness in you is not localized in your brain. It's not between your ears. It is distributed. It is non-local. We know that the brain is very important and fulfills certain specific functions. And yet it is what we now know about the brain, actually, and it's interesting, what we now know for a fact about the brain is it would refute everything I was taught about the brain in university psychology class, you know, nearly 30 years ago. It would refute everything. So what we do know is the heart is full of neural plexes. Your gut is as well. That's called the enteric brain. So you have brain cells all through your system, and your entire body-mind organism is full of information pathways that are constantly distributing information through various means that we're only beginning to understand. Some of the distribution occurs by light, by photons in your body. Wow. And it really is mind-blowing when you look at it. So all that to say, when we're talking about the importance of feeling consistently great, it is primarily an emotional category, but it's also physical in some very important ways. In other words, because our consciousness is distributed, the mind and the body are intimately connected. So when we talk about feeling consistently great, we can't talk only about emotions in isolation. And to understand this, obviously the easiest way is, you know, if you say, okay, if somebody's in chronic pain, are they going to feel really good? Well, no. It's very difficult to feel good emotionally if you're in right, if you're suffering physically. However, there's a much deeper layer on which this functions, and that is that we know for a fact that our emotions are not simply chemical reactions in the brain. They're energies that flow through our entire organism. And ancient medical traditions like Chinese medicine, for instance, and that's only one example, have charted these correspondences for hundreds and hundreds of years. So we know, using the Chinese medical model, for instance, that certain emotions are tied into certain energy systems in the body, certain organ systems. So, for instance, courage is linked to the lung organ system. Confidence is linked to your kidney organ system. And when we talk about an organ system, we don't mean, in this case, if we take the kidneys, we don't mean just the kidneys themselves, those two organs in your lower back. We mean the entire kidney energy system that starts at your feet and goes up to those organs. Also, other emotions are like this. Joy is linked to the heart energy system, and on it goes. Same with negative emotions. So we also know that they're tied in because when we get people doing energy work, one example is I was doing a class in teaching people some Chinese Qigong. And the Qigong, when we started doing the most simple breathing technique, there was one woman there who actually broke down and started crying when she was doing this breathing technique. The reason was simple. She was releasing an emotional trauma. So we know for a fact that this is the way things work. That's why it's really important to understand that feeling consistently great means you have to work with your body as well. You need to very much focus on your health and how your body is doing.
Are there parts of your body that are connected to negative emotions? Joy is with your heart, or is that? I'm just curious. I mean, you're bringing up some very fascinating information.
Actually, yeah. So if you have a particular positive emotion linked to an energy system, the flip side of that emotion, which is the negative part, is also linked to that same energy system. So if you take the liver, for example, patience and kindness are linked to the liver energy system, but so are impatience and anger. Mm. And that's why often if someone suffers from chronic anger, they're actually damaging their liver and their liver's energy system.
That makes sense.
So in other words, if you're trying to attract what you want without having really focused on feeling consistently great, on putting yourself in the best possible emotional space, what's going to happen? And this is a very important concept. We're going to come back to it a few times when we're in this talk because it is that important. People ignore this. They ignore how they feel and then try to manifest and wonder why what they manifest corresponds not at all to what they consciously want, but rather, and they don't often see this, but it corresponds to their feeling state. Mm. And this goes to the second point, which is about what I call switching guidance systems. We have two different guidance systems within us as human beings. Guidance systems are what allow us to make decisions. And in the West, we've been brought up to be problem solvers. We're chronic problem solvers. We've been taught since we were knee-high to nothing that if there is a problem, difficulty, or challenge in life, or anything we wish to accomplish, that it's up to us to figure out the answers using our brains. We have to use our rational mind to figure out the answers. That's what we've got to do. And it sounds really, it sounds on the face of it like, well, that's really good. That's empowering. That's, puts me in the driver's seat. Well, actually, sad to say, but it doesn't. It doesn't, because here's what happens. Often in life, we hit a challenge. Perhaps it's something that comes out of the blue. Perhaps it's linked to something we want to accomplish, a project or something. And if we believe that it's up to us to figure out the answers, how to do this, suddenly we realize we don't know the answers. We're not that smart. We don't have that much experience. We don't see any way out of this predicament. And then we get what? We get depressed. We get frustrated. We get anxious. And we spiral into a whole cycle of negative emotions. Negative emotions that leave us feeling what? Feeling bad. Therefore, what are we going to manifest? And also that leave us disempowered and give us the feeling that we do not control our lives. And we're going to talk much more about this when we talk about a certain 18th century physicist. But this is very important because basically what it means is if you subscribe to the idea that it's up to you to solve the problem, you're going to be put into this spiral of negative emotion. And it's inevitable because you don't see a solution on the horizon. So that this whole model assumes that the only way out of a predicament is to figure out the answers, to figure out the how. However, what we're talking about now is a totally different vision of reality. We're talking about a vision of reality, and the correct vision of reality, because it actually does work, and it's the same vision of reality ancient traditions always talked about, where you do not have to know the how. You don't have to figure it out. A huge weight is therefore lifted off your shoulders. The whole burden comes off you because it's not up to you. All you have to know in order to manifest what you want and therefore find a way out of a predicament or find a solution to perhaps something you want to accomplish, all you have to know is what you want to see as the end result. You have to know what the end result is, and you have to know the feeling state that corresponds to that end result. That's all you have to know. You do not have to know the how. You do not have to know the answers. And in most cases, and even everybody's experience, I submit everybody who's listening to this has had this experience at some point if they think about it, where the solution that came and that worked perfectly was so unexpected they couldn't possibly have even guessed. Because the persons, events, or things that constituted that solution were not persons, events, or things that they had any knowledge of. These are things that came into your experience, and you could not possibly have orchestrated this solution. And that's a very important point. So it comes from outside your awareness. Solutions typically come from outside your awareness. So we'll talk more about that. But that's what we call the intuitive guidance system. The intuitive guidance system, as opposed to the disempowering rational guidance system we've been taught, the intuitive guidance system allows you the freedom to relax, to shed all the anxiety, and simply focus on what you want to happen and the feeling state of that. It is hugely empowering and makes life so much easier, because if you believe in the rational guidance system, the only thing you can do in life is cope. Because life is a struggle. We'll talk more about this when we talk about our dear Sir Isaac Newton. So I just wanted to set the stage with those two things. Now we can talk about what you really wanted to get at, Daniel, earlier, which was those 4 traps that we all fall into. Really,
yes.
Because all of us at some point have probably, played around with the law of attraction, so to speak, and not had optimal results, to say the least. And there are very, very particular reasons for this. The first reason, the first factor, is what I call being wound around the axle. And I know that sounds like a little bizarre. It may not be an expression that's self-explanatory for you. It certainly wasn't for me. So I had a friend once who, whenever he found somebody who was really upset about something, he'd say, wow, is she ever wound around the axle about that? So being wound around the axle is, think of it as maybe a rubber band that's been wound up so tightly it can't be wound anymore. And in other words, it's what happens when we are emotionally compromised in relation to the thing we're trying to manifest or change. We are emotionally compromised. What I mean by that is the following. The first thing that we try to do, quite naturally, when we learn about the law of attraction, is to use it to fix the biggest issues in our life. We want to use it on
like a wand, issues. Like a genie.
Well, yeah. We want to, of course, we try to use it to fix the big things. Well, what's the problem there? Well, the big issues in your life, the things that are, of course, they're the things that cause you the most pain. And naturally, what do we want to do? We want to eliminate pain and feel better, so we try to use the law of attraction right away on those things that cause us pain. The problem is that those big issues, now that big issue could be for you, for anybody, it could be, it could be money, it could be a health issue, it could be a relationship issue, there could be more than one. But the point is, this is where we try to use it. And the problem is those issues are surrounded by the biggest cloud of negative emotional energy. So there is huge negative emotional energy around those issues. Let me give you an example. I have a friend who is deeply compromised emotionally in his relationship to money. Now, a lot of you hearing this can relate to that. But he's a guy who feels there's never enough, and he isn't worthy of it anyway, and he always feels he's going to be struggling for it. And this is very ironic because he is highly educated. He's a highly educated professional. He's an engineer. He's very good at what he does, but he has trouble holding down a particular job, which he shouldn't. And yet this is part of his self-sabotage. Now, if he's normally a really, really, kind of fun-loving, jovial person. So if you got him in his fun-loving, jovial mood and say you hooked him up with electrodes so you could monitor his body functions from a medical point of view, and then you asked him, okay, think about using the manifesting process to produce financial stability or more money in your life, what would happen? Well, it's very easy to predict. The moment you mention that to him, the moment you would get him talking about his goals, even talking about how to use the law of attraction to fix the problem, what you would see if you were monitoring his physiology is his blood pressure would go up a little bit, his heart rate would go up, his breathing would change, he might begin to sweat, and there would be a number of physiological markers that would change. His brain would actually secrete different neurochemicals, neuropeptides, and hormones. It would change. In other words, this would change the constitution of his bloodstream. And he would begin to feel bad. He would begin to feel tense. He would begin to feel anxious. Because these are the normal responses he has to this particular issue. So for him to use the law of attraction, to try to use the law of attraction at the beginning to fix this problem is kind of like a kamikaze kind of mission. Imagine that you decide for the first time in your life you're going to take a martial arts lesson. You've never learned anything about fighting before, So you decide you're going to take a martial arts lesson. And the moment that lesson finishes, what do? You go straight out of the studio and you challenge Bruce Lee to a death match. And that's pretty much what being wound around the axle is. You're just beginning with the law of attraction. And what do? You face your biggest opponent. And what does your biggest opponent do? He beats the crap out of you. This is not going to end well. It never does. So point here, and this is very, very important, you absolutely need an approach to manifesting that takes you out of the high-stakes world of your big issues and allows you the freedom to play in a place where you're not wound around the axle and where there are no consequences. This is the way to learn the law of attraction. You need to have that place, and we're going to show you how to do it. But it's absolutely essential. Otherwise, you'll be caught up constantly in this negative emotional spiral. Now, the second trap that we fall into is trying to manifest without internal alignment. Now, what is internal alignment? Internal alignment can perhaps best be understood by understanding when you're not in alignment. So think about this. Have you ever set a goal for yourself? Perhaps it was something you were trying to manifest or produce in some way, and you set this goal for yourself, but when you would think about this goal, you actually didn't feel very good. Mm-hmm. So your rational mind was saying one thing, but your emotions were telling you something different. And again, if we hooked you up to those medical instruments, they would tell us that your feeling state was right. Your brain was off doing its own thing. So internally, you're divided. That's what it means to be out of alignment. When you're in alignment, everything flows, everything works, everything feels wonderful. And even when things go wrong, it still feels wonderful. Very, very important. And I can give you a really quick example. It took me years to figure out or to realize that this was a perfect example of alignment. But way back in 2006, I started a teleseminar series on questions of mindset. It was called the Mindset Mastery Boot Camp. And this teleseminar series, dealt with, all the mindset stuff, law of attraction stuff, because I was very, very interested in figuring all this out at the time. But I was relatively unknown. So here I was, absolutely, somebody nobody knew from Adam. And suddenly this idea of setting up a teleseminar series came to me. And it felt really good. It came out of the blue, which is typical of things you should act on. It came out of the blue. I didn't invent it, in other words. I wasn't trying to figure it out. It just came to me as the obvious thing to do. And when I started thinking about it, I got excited. And I couldn't stop thinking about it because it got me that excited. And so I did take action, and it felt really good. And I attracted mentors to myself to help me do it. I attracted help in getting some of the guests. I was phoning up famous people like, Harv Eker and saying, hey, you want to be on my teleseminar series? And to my total shock, a whole bunch of them said yes. A few of them said no, and two were downright rude, but I wasn't, it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me.
Right.
It just felt so great. And when I look back on that series, despite the obstacles that were there and the huge workload, it was amazing because I basically attracted into my life several people that I still work with to this day who have become friends and colleagues, and we've put on teleseminars and live events together and done all kinds of amazing things together. And through one of those people, I ended up being in a movie, a docudrama, similar to What the Bleep Do We Know? And I also attracted my business partner. I found my business partner that I've worked with every single day practically for the last 6 years. So it's been an amazing time. Literally not a single day of my life has been the same since, because I followed through on something where I felt totally in alignment. Now, since then, I have screwed up numerous times and tried to do things when I was out of alignment, and I have quickly learned that was not the best thing to do. So being in alignment is crucial. So in other words, if you want to learn the law of attraction, you have to find an approach to manifesting that brings you into alignment repeatedly. I'll say it again, that brings you into alignment repeatedly so that you get a feeling for this inner alignment. You become familiar with it. You learn how to recreate this feeling. You learn how to recognize the presence of this feeling of alignment. Very, very important. And again, we'll show you how to do that. Trap number 3 that we all fall into, and we have all done it, is trying to manifest when we're not clear on what we actually want. And yeah, it may sound silly, but the real truth of the matter, and anybody in the world of personal development will tell you this, that even though everybody wants to change their life, if you ask people, what would your ideal life be like? They'll look at you with a blank stare, at least 99% of them will, and say, well, I'm really not sure. And if you ask those nasty probing questions like, have you thought about it? Well, sort of, but not really. Have you written down anything? Do you have any written goals? No. So, which means there's a total lack of clarity, and people are very conscious of this lack of clarity. And if you're feeling this lack of clarity, you may seem I've been making fun of you, but I'm not, because I've been there myself, and because what I'm going to tell you is that this lack of clarity is totally normal. It can even be explained. Because, think about it this way, young children know what they want. They innocently spend their entire days going through their day focusing on what they want. They are in touch with their passions. They're in touch with what they love to do. They can spend hours doing things that they love to do. However, even if you were like that as a child, the fact is by the time you reached your mid-teens, the educational system had beaten creativity out of you, largely. And you can probably remember a whole lot of instances in the school system where you had wonderful creative instincts and you really wanted to use them, but you were shut down. You were shut down and not allowed to use your creativity.
Right.
You were being regimented. And then, of course, you get to your mid-teens, and by the time you're in your mid-teens, you are the recipient of a whole bunch of social messaging coming through both the educational system, your parents, your peers, everybody, who is telling you it is time to be responsible, it is time to grow up, it is time to start thinking about the fact that you need to get a job, therefore you need a good education, therefore, all this is in preparation so you can get married, settle down, have 2.5 kids, and suffer. So you're being told that that as you're doing all that, what you have to do is forget about your own wants and needs and serve the needs of others. Now, this is a very interesting message because, and I'm telling you this as a priest of the Orthodox Church, it's a very interesting message because it's very deceptive. It sounds like you're being told to be selfless. What you're really being told is to conform. And it's different. And all societies do this, especially when a society feels threatened. It tries to regiment people and get everybody doing the same thing. However, that isn't the way to survive. The real way to survive and thrive, the way any society really thrives, is if the only way it can, as a matter of fact, is if all of us are true to who we really are. So in other words, the reason you're not clear on what you really want is because that muscle of clarity has not been exercised, sometimes in decades. You may have gone for decades without ever thinking about what you really want, what really attracts you, who you really are, what turns you on, what motivates you. And how, if you don't know that, how can you possibly understand what you want to manifest, let alone what your purpose in life is? So very important. So there are ways, however, to get back to this, but it does take time. There are specific exercises you can do on a regular basis to re-energize this muscle of creativity, to begin to dream again, to begin to get in touch with who you really are. And it's very important even from a health perspective because there have been many studies talking about how many cancers, and cancer is about 86% emotional, only 14% environmental. So if cancer is 86% emotional, what does it mean? Well, wow, a lot of it comes from the fact that we are repressing who we are. So there have been some studies done on that, the idea that repressing who you are actually has health consequences because we're just not being true to who we are. And although it takes time to get back this muscle of creativity, it is possible even before you become clear, and this is the very important point, before you become totally clear on everything you want in life, you can still master the manifesting process before you get there. You don't have to be clear first. So what you actually need is, again, a particular environment where you can begin to master the manifesting process, even though you're not clear on all the big things in life. You don't have to be. All you have to be clear on is what you want for the next hour or two, what you want to experience in the next hour or two. And that's a lot less demanding and much, much easier to do.
Yes, easier to focus.
Yeah. And then that brings us to the final trap, which is kind of an eye-opener. It's going to raise some eyebrows, and that is trying to manifest when you don't actually believe in the law of attraction.
Such a good one.
And, I'm sure there are a lot of people listening to this who are saying, well, good thing he's not talking about me. After all, I believe in it. I'm here on this teleseminar series. I wouldn't be here on this series if I didn't believe it, because it's about the law of attraction. I'd be stupid to be here if I didn't believe it. So obviously he's not talking about me. Wrong. I am talking about you.
I love it.
Disbelief makes it very difficult to get what you want, because disbelief or doubt is it's a particular vibrational energy. It's a negative, life-sucking vibration. And so if this is what you're putting out, what you create or manifest or what's attracted to you will correspond to that negative tone, inevitably. So strangely enough, even though the law of attraction is an ironclad law that's been working all the time, yes, you are a perfect manifestor. You manifest perfectly all the time. Everything you've manifested in your life up till now corresponds to your feeling state. And since that's the case, and you're going to prove to yourself, by the way, this is the case, there's a way to do that. What this really means is that it's very, very important to believe that it is possible to get into alignment and attract what you consciously want. Because think of it, this is what we're doing. I'm not here to try to improve your manifesting ability. You manifest perfectly. All I'm trying to do is show you how you can manifest what you want, consciously want, instead of what you consciously don't want. That's the only difference. And if you think of the law of attraction, let's take a biblical example. If you go to the New Testament, how many times does Jesus Christ say, whatever you ask for, believing, you will receive? Ask, seek, knock. Ask and it will be given. He says this and demonstrates this over and over in so many different ways. He beats people over the head with it. He doesn't say whatever you ask for, believing, we'll set up a committee and think about it and get back to you. He says, whatever you ask for, believing, you get. If you have the belief the size of a mustard seed, and belief and faith are the same word in Greek, pistis. If you have belief the size of a mustard seed, you can cause a mountain to drop itself into the sea. And that's a pretty big statement. So in other words, the power we have is very, very great. We have a divine creative power within us. And we are only truly happy when we're engaging this divine creative power, and we want to be able to do it consciously. So it's important to begin to believe the law of attraction. And to begin to believe in it, the only way to begin to believe in it is to get an approach that allows us to see time and time again, over and over again, the exact correspondence between two things: our feeling state and what actually happens. Again, our feeling state and what happens. And there's a third element, which is what we consciously wish to experience. And of course, we want to bring what we consciously wish to experience, we want to bring that and what actually happens closer and closer together. But whether we do or not, nevertheless, we can see the correspondence with our feeling state. And once we begin to see that, what happens is we get ironclad belief in the law of attraction, because we see it for ourselves. You see, in our society, we've been taught to ignore the law of attraction. We've been taught to look for other things. Every culture teaches its people to focus on some things and ignore other things. We've been taught to ignore all the things that would show us that the law of attraction is a genuine law. And it is a genuine law. For instance, let's take a law that everybody knows. Let's take gravity. Now, Daniel, if you go outside and you throw a tennis ball in the air, you know that ball is coming down.
Yep.
It never even occurs to you that that ball might keep going and end up orbiting the planet. It never occurs to you. You know that ball is coming down because you've seen over and over that what goes up comes down.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are able to see over and over that what you produce in your life comes from your feeling state, what do you think that's going to do? It's going to prove to you that this law really exists. And it's a funny thing happens there. Once you begin to believe it with total certainty because you've seen it, suddenly all those negative emotional hang-ups that used to sabotage you, they don't really matter anymore. You begin to laugh at them. You don't believe them anymore. And so you don't even need to keep doing your meridian tapping or your EFT or whatever on
right.
You really don't. So that's why it's so important to see this in action. And there is a way to do that, and we'll talk more about that. And now this is the end of the 4 factors, which brings us probably, I'm guessing, to what you really want to hear personally, which is all about Sir Isaac Newton.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to know how, everybody's looking for someone to blame, right?
Yeah.
I'm going, see, I knew it. So tell me about it. How did Sir Isaac Newton make me miserable?
Do you think it's cruel and maybe even a little bit ironic that a British scientist who's been dead for 3 centuries should be making your life miserable today?
Absolutely.
Well, it's true. I hate to say it. It's true. Now, Sir Isaac Newton, in all fairness, was one of the most brilliant scientists of all time, and his discoveries have been absolutely critical to our technical progress. There's no doubt about it. And I don't want to, when I'm talking about the Newtonian worldview, I'm not actually attacking Isaac Newton per se, because he wasn't there to found a worldview. He was there looking for mathematical principles of the physical world, and did that very successfully. So I'm not dumping on him, but for a number of cultural reasons, his findings in the physical world were taken and turned into a philosophical system. And according to that philosophical system, which basically conditions all of what we call Western civilization right now, according to that way of looking at things, the universe we inhabit is impersonal, mechanistic, and hostile. Impersonal, mechanistic, and hostile. And it led to, for instance, a belief system called deism or deism, depending on your pronunciation, which was very popular in the United States, by the way, in the 18th century. And in deism was the belief that, yes, God created the universe, but he created it in the same manner in which a watchmaker creates a watch. So he sort of created it, wound it up, and lets it go on its own. So it's mechanistic and impersonal. That's just one example. And, of course, he wasn't the first to say so, but I'm not going to go into the historical baggage that allowed this kind of worldview to take root, because there were a lot of precursors to this. So I won't go there. But the biggest thing to understand, or really there are 2 fundamental principles of the Newtonian worldview that are very, very important. One is that matter is solid and real. So wherever you're listening to this, if there's a solid object, of course, around you, like your desk or a wall, and you knock on it, according to the Newtonian worldview, that's solid and real. Now, we know scientifically now that that's not the case. There is no such thing as matter as material substance. Everything is simply an energy pattern arranged in a particular way. And that desk or wall you may have knocked on a second ago is mostly empty space. So in other words, we now know, and Sir Isaac didn't, he has to be absolved for the fact that he did not know that the way the world appears to us is not the way it really is. But we know that now. And the other thing to keep in mind, and this is even a more important principle, is that according to the Newtonian worldview, your consciousness has no effect on material substance, on the material world. Your consciousness has no effect on the world around you. This is a very, very important point. Because if your consciousness has no effect on the world around you, then think about it. You are not really a participant in life. Life happens to you. Life is an external thing that happens to you, and you are disempowered because the only way you can change your circumstances is to take physical action in the physical world, according to this worldview, because your consciousness cannot do it. Your consciousness cannot affect anything, cannot affect or change your experience. Therefore, you're put in the position of being a victim. And you're put in the position of trying to basically dodge the bullet, because you see life from this point of view. If you believe this, life is automatically a series of events that are happening outside of your consciousness and unconnected with your consciousness that nevertheless can affect you in a very negative way. So all of life becomes coping from this point of view. All of life becomes disempowered, and you live with a permanent low level of anxiety. You are permanently put into what we would call defense or defensive physiology. Defensive physiology is an objective physiological change. You can measure it. It's a low-level version of the fight or flight syndrome. So if you believe that your consciousness does not in any way control your experience and your circumstances in life or have any effect on that, then you're in a very sorry place, because here you are, a physical being trapped in a hostile, mechanical, and impersonal world, and you have no control except to take physical action in the physical world to protect yourself. It's a very, very defensive paradigm, and it's one that ensures that you will be kept helpless, disempowered, and easily manipulated. And, of course, all kinds of nefarious people, especially dictators and such, love a population that's in fear.
Oh, yeah.
People who are afraid are easily manipulated.
Amazing information you're sharing with us, Doctor. Time is flying by very quickly. There's something that I want to go over.
Sure.
Before we get Dr. Symeon has to kind enough to do a meditation or an exercise with us to help us with what he's teaching us. Now, we talked about it earlier when I was introducing you about you being a manifestation medic and performing CPR. What do you mean by that?
What do I mean by performing CPR?
Well, yeah.
Well, very simple. You see, I believe everybody out there already knows the fundamental principles of the manifesting process. And so the only thing we really need to do is clear up some of these traps that people have fallen into and create a space where everybody can learn the law of attraction in a very systematic and scientific way, in an environment that makes it possible for them to do it without falling into any of these traps and without having to fix these particular traps, if you will, ahead of time. Like, for instance, you do not have to know 100% or have 100% clarity on your life in order to begin. You don't. You don't have to get rid of all your emotional baggage first. You do not have to spend 2 years doing energy work to fix your mindset and fix your emotions. You can learn where you are. From where you're starting now, you can actually learn the law of attraction and become totally convinced it really works. And that in itself will go a very long way to fixing your emotional state.
Wonderful. Wow, that sounds so awesome. And now we're going to do our exercise.
So what we're going to do here, and I really do appreciate everybody for sticking around. This exercise is a lot of fun. It's going to show you a very important principle. What I'd like you to do is hold up one finger, any finger, doesn't matter what. And what I would like you to do is focus your mental attention on the tip of that finger. Focus your mental attention on the tip of that finger. Now, ask yourself, using only the power of my mind, what physical sensations can I detect at the end of that finger? What physical sensations are there? Again, using only the power of your mind, what physical sensations can you detect at the end of that finger? Now, you may want to close your eyes while you do that. Perfectly fine. And so, Daniel, is anything coming up for you? Are you feeling anything at the end of that finger?
Yeah, like tingling.
Okay.
Yeah, like tingling,
Yep. And that's a normal answer. We get all kinds of things like tingling, throbbing, pulsing, hot, cold. Whatever you feel, by the way, is perfectly fine, everybody. No one's going to dispute what you feel or don't feel, and it doesn't really matter. But the important point is that using only the power of your mind, you have been able to detect what's going on at a remote place on your body using only the power of your mind. But it gets better. If we were able to hook you up to scientific instruments sensitive enough, we could prove to you that by focusing your mental attention on the tip of that finger, you measurably changed the physiology at the end of that finger. So by focusing your mental attention on the tip of that finger, you increased the flow of blood, the flow of oxygen, and therefore the flow of energy or qi, as Chinese medicine calls it, to the end of that finger. So you changed the molecular structure, and you did that using exclusively the power of your mind. Now remember that, because we're going to go on and do one more thing, which is going to show you the flip side. The flip side is if you have, we'll do it this way. We'll do a quick breathing exercise. So what I'd like you to do, if you can do this breathing exercise, is, and you can do it sitting down or standing, whichever you want, as long as your back's more or less straight, and as long as you're in good enough health to do it. All you have to do is inhale and exhale through your nose. And for the first part of the exercise, we'll take two breaths. And when you inhale, this is very important, when you inhale, raise your shoulders and expand your chest. And do the opposite when you exhale. So inhale, raise your shoulders, expand your chest. Breath number 1. Ready? Inhale through the nose. Ready? Raise the shoulders, expand the chest, and exhale. Breath number 2. Raise the shoulders, expand the chest, and exhale. Now, that probably felt pretty good to most people.
Mm-hmm.
The little catch, of course, is what you've done is, and although it does feel genuinely good, is an exaggerated version of what we call chest breathing. Chest breathing is the way almost everybody in Western society breathes. The only problem with chest breathing is that it's not the way your mind-body organism is meant to breathe. It's very inefficient, and it's also linked to negative emotional states. So if you see somebody who's worked up in a very negative emotional space, whether that's anger or rage or fear and anxiety or jealousy, or could be anything, when you see somebody who's really worked up in a negative emotional space, you'll notice their breathing gets higher in the chest, higher and more ragged in the chest. However, if you take somebody like that and you get them to breathe deeply into the abdomen, those negative emotions will dissipate very quickly. So what does that look like? Well, very easy. We'll do another breathing exercise. We'll take 2 breaths again. But this time, when you inhale, your shoulders and chest will not move, or hardly at all. But take one thumb, the thumb of one hand, doesn't matter which, and place your thumb on your navel. So the rest of your hand is resting on your lower abdomen, just below the navel. Try that. And this time, when you inhale, your abdomen will expand and push your hand outward. So try that. Inhale, breath number 1 through the nose. Push the hand out. And exhale, and the abdomen comes back in. Inhale, the abdomen goes out, and exhale. It comes back in. Now that's a very quick illustration of what we call abdominal breathing, or normal abdominal breathing. Normal abdominal breathing is the way you're meant to breathe habitually. It's meant to be your default setting, but almost nobody has that as a default setting. The thing is that normal abdominal breathing dissipates negative emotional states. So in other words, what you did by changing breathing from the chest to the abdomen, which dissipated those negative emotional states, think of what that meant. You used your physiology to change your consciousness. You used your physiology to change your consciousness. You used your breathing pattern specifically to alter your emotional state. And that is exactly the opposite of what you did with the finger exercise. With the finger exercise, you used your consciousness to change your physiology. So it works both ways. So you've seen there and actually felt an illustration in your own body of the fact that you can work with your emotions both through your mind and through your body. You can work with your health through your mind and through your body. The mind and the body are integrally connected.
Wow, that is cool. Well, I know that you have many, many people, Dr. Symeon, that work with you. Can you kind of go over a couple of the amazing turnarounds people have had by kind of practicing what you teach?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's really interesting because there are 2 kinds of turnarounds that you get. One kind is exemplified by a young lady who was using this practice, and what she did, what happened to her in her, I think in the first week she was using this stuff actually, was that she got more clients for her business, witnessed the miraculous healing of a young girl, and got a marriage proposal.
Wow.
And then there was another guy who he'd been trying to sell his dilapidated, beaten-up Jeep Cherokee for years, apparently. And when he listened to this material, what he decided was, well, if I simply put an intention out there, this should work. So he sat down and put a firm intention out there that that he wanted a buyer, and then let it go. And the next day, somebody bought his broken down, dilapidated Jeep Cherokee. Now, those are very measurable external things, right? That doesn't happen for everybody. What happens in a lot of cases is people say, oh, I feel so much better. I'm not anxious anymore. I feel much more relaxed. I really feel, I can just relax and that I have some control in my life now, and things are beginning, or my relationship's beginning to get better with my children or my spouse or something like this. These are things that are not easily measurable, but if anything, they're actually more important.
No, it makes a whole lot of sense. We could really learn a lot from you, and you've taken the time to create an offer for all those that are listening on the call right now. And so, folks, I really highly encourage you, simply click on the special offer button that's on this page. Doctor, what have you created for us there?
Okay, what I've created for you here is what I call the systematic manifesting miracle. And the systematic manifesting miracle is 3 weeks to easily, effortlessly, and reliably creating the life of your dreams and loving every moment of it. And what it really is, Daniel, is it's a process. It's a process, a 21-day process where you follow a protocol for 21 days in your real day-to-day life. And using this protocol, you're able to observe the law of attraction at work. You're able to actually set intentions as you go through your day using what we call the interval design process. So it's a process that allows you to take various periods in your day, and your day is always, pretty much always broken up naturally into different periods of time. In each period of time, you have different activities, you're with different people in a different location or whatever.
Right.
And you can easily decide what you want to experience based on what you already know about that upcoming period of time. So the purpose of this is to give you that safe playground where you can play with the law of attraction in a very low-stakes environment where there's no threat and therefore no negative emotion arises. And you can actually follow the results. You can chart and keep track of everything that's going on. And when you do that, you'll see the pattern that emerges is amazing. You begin to see that you really do have conscious control over what you experience. And so that's the 21-day journey. So when you embark on the 21-day journey, you're really learning how to do the manifesting process, and you're actually showing yourself at the same time, you're proving to yourself that it really does work, that it exists. The law of attraction is a law. It's an ironclad law, and you end up with ironclad faith that it really does work.
Is this something you do on your own?
You do it sort of on your own. Well, let me explain. First of all, there's an ebook that explains the entire process. There's also an audio version of that ebook in case you'd rather listen to it or you're traveling or whatever. And then for the 21 days, there is an audio I send you every single day that gives you precise instructions for that day. And you don't have to start the journey right away. As a matter of fact, the audios don't start coming until 12 days after you get in the program because you need time to digest the information and get yourself organized. But even once the audios start coming, you don't have to go on the 21-day journey right away. You can simply save those and do them when you're ready, and you can repeat the 21-day journey as often as you wish. And there are also, in addition to that, 8 other audios that you can listen to, and they are separate educational audios that give you more detail than I've been able to go into today about what it means to feel consistently great, how to switch from the rational guidance system to the intuitive guidance system, how to free yourself from the tyranny of the Newtonian worldview, how to get totally clear on what you want to be, do, and have, how to understand the biology of your mind, understand the biology of the manifesting process. How does this really work internally? And then your body as the key to feeling consistently great, so how to work through your body, how to clear emotional blockages quickly and effectively. And the final audio is an interview with an excellent, very experienced energy healer, Catherine McClenahan, who talks about what energy healing can do for you. It's a program you can use and repeat, and it's one where I follow you every step of the way, and you have directions.
Doctor, it sounds amazing. What can people expect as benefits for doing this program over time or right away?
For right away, I would say, first of all, you get a very, very precise idea of how the manifesting process really works. And many people have some misconceptions about how the manifesting process works. So this gives you detailed experience, and it is, I have to emphasize, it's your own experience. You're teaching yourself as you go. And the neat thing about this process is you can't fail. It's impossible to fail in this process because anything that happens is just data. It's simply scientific data. So if you're thinking, I really want a particular result in this interval of time, and it turns out differently, and maybe it's not agreeable to you, it doesn't matter. It's just data, because you can still compare that to the feeling state that you had. So it's all data. You can't go wrong. The only way you can screw this up is not to do it.
Right, just follow the system.
So in other words, even if you were to totally fail in the sense of not getting the results you want, it wouldn't matter, because you'd still prove to yourself that the law worked perfectly.
Perfect.
When you look at the systematic manifesting miracle, which is on special for everybody today, it's usually $147, but now it's just $97.
Beautiful.
And the bonus that you have with this systematic manifesting miracle, which is called the Somatic Power Attraction Program, that program gives you all the information you would ever need about how to work through your body. It contains some both very basic and very advanced stuff. Everything you need to know about breathing, posture, movement, how to integrate them all. And that is a whole game changer.
That is, that was a beautiful exercise for us to really understand what you've been speaking about today, what you've been teaching today, Dr. Symeon. I really appreciate that, because it really kind of gives us an insight to the possibilities of the program that you outlined for and the offer, which is absolutely incredible. I can't even imagine all that information for what the investment is, so to speak. I love it. All right, folks, simply click on the special offer button that's on this page. Dr. Symeon, we're out of time. Any final thoughts?
Well, I think the only thing to say, Daniel, is that the law of attraction is, and this is the key, the law of attraction is not about simply getting stuff. What it really is, in its essence, is a spiritual practice that enables you to experience a complete emotional detoxification of the kind that everybody needs and almost nobody ever gets. It's about becoming totally integrated and in touch with who you really are. It's about being able to live according to who you really are and what really motivates you. It's about becoming true to yourself and developing your capacity also to love and care for others. Really, that's what it is. It's a spiritual process. It is not simply about getting stuff. Yes, you will get the stuff. It works all the time. It works perfectly. Whatever you want, you can get. But whoever you want to become, you can become, which is more important.
Lovely. I love that.
So that's it.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, Dr. Symeon. I appreciate you. And as always, I look forward to our next chat together.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been wonderful. Good night, everybody.